May 24th, 2023 meeting of the Anacortes Planning Commission. Take roll. I see that Mr. McCombs is not here. We still have a quorum and we'll proceed with the meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the May 8th meeting? Any questions or changes? None being heard, we'll move on to correspondence. Do we have any new correspondence or issues to deal with other than what's on the agenda? None being heard, we'll move on to new business. Our first item of action is to select a new vice chair with the departure of Sarah Ruther. You basically are stuck with me and no backup in case I'm not available. So we need somebody designated as a vice chair to provide coverage in the event that the chair is not available. I'm looking for volunteers or motions, or maybe you can blame somebody here. Any thoughts?
I'd like to nominate the young lady sitting to my left.
Dr. Martin.
Miller. Dr. Martin.
I second the nomination.
Okay, we have a nomination and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I didn't vote.
Go ahead and vote.
Aye.
I'm glad to have you agree. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Our next item is scheduled to be an open record public hearing and decision for Shoreline Substantial Development Permit SDP 2023-00002. And I understand that there have been some recent developments. So for tonight, we will be at the appropriate time, we'll open the hearing, but we will not conclude the hearing, and we'll continue it until the next meeting when this item comes up. So, Ms. Pollard, do you have a presentation or some wisdom for us here?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, members of the public and the audience, my name is Grace Pollard. I'm the Senior Planner here at the Planning, Community, and Economic Development Department. And I bring you tonight a Shoreline Substantial Development Permit application from the Port of Anacortes. We have a couple slides here to orient ourselves to the port property that is the subject site. And just to clarify, this presentation is a brief overview of the more detailed information found in the staff report within the agenda packet. So here we have outlined an approximate area of the proposed work. It's adjacent to the building addressed at 116 O Avenue. The Port of Anacortes is the applicant and owner of Curtis Wharf, which is the wharf directly to the north here. Shoreline site and vicinity map. So in the image to the left, we have the shoreline designation area highlighted in this pale pink. This is the urban maritime environment designation. And in a larger zoomed out area of North Anacortes, this is the subject property. The zoning designation for the subject property is manufacturing and shipping. Here is the proposal overview. So the Port of Anacortes is proposing a street improvement project that includes excavation of existing gravel surface and base materials, backfilling and compacting of clean imported fill and base course materials, installation of updated stormwater conveyance and best management practice facilities, installation and construction of approximately 18,500 square feet of new asphalt, about 4 inches in depth, and the installation of a new rolling access gate and additional length of chain link security fencing. The applicant provided clarification for the provision of a security fence and gate, which they describe as a requirement from the United States Coast Guard maritime security requirements. And you can see these two areas in the image here. The intersection of O and 2nd Street is where they're proposing the automatic swing gate. And on the backside of 2nd Street, near the shoreline, is their proposed additional fencing that connects to existing chain link fence at the wharf to existing chain link fencing at their property to the south. Oh, some of my imagery is not here. So the review process is a Type 3 Planning Commission decision. Shoreline substantial development permits for projects valued less than $1 million or on a site under 3 acres is a Type 3 review. We started this process in January on the 31st with the mandatory pre-application meeting with city staff. The port then had a neighborhood meeting on March 9th. The application for the shoreline substantial development permit was submitted February 27th and deemed complete on March 10th. The combined notice of application and the public hearing was published on April 12th, and the public comment period ended with no comments received on May 11th, which brings us here tonight, May 24th, with the public hearing with the Planning Commission. Oh, sorry. There's all that information. A little background. Part of the agenda packet included a right-of-way use agreement between the City of Anacortes and the Port of Anacortes. This is for the portion of 2nd Street right-of-way from the west side of O Avenue towards the water and stops at the shoreline. This was signed on February 16th, 2022, and among other details within this agreement, the city agreed to close the 2nd Street right-of-way from the west end of O Avenue to the shoreline, restricting public traffic and access to this section of 2nd Street and the shoreline. It grants the port exclusive use of the 2nd Street right-of-way within the terms outlined in the agreement, and clarifies that the port is still required to comply with all applicable federal, state, and local laws, ordinances, orders, rules, and regulations. The port is responsible for all necessary permits, licenses, certifications, or approvals required by applicable laws, ordinances, and regulations. And that is why we are here with this shoreline substantial development permit. So the Shoreline Master Program is a comprehensive use plan that emphasizes protecting the shoreline environment through management of uses. The purposes of the master program are to carry out the responsibilities imposed on the City of Anacortes by the Washington State Shoreline Management Act, to promote uses and development of the Anacortes shoreline consistent with the Anacortes Comprehensive Plan while protecting and restoring environmental resources, and to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare by providing a guide and regulations for the future development of the shoreline resources of the City of Anacortes. The Anacortes Shoreline Master Program is a planning document that outlines goals and policies for the use, development, protection, and restoration of shorelines of the city. It is also a regulatory ordinance with regulations for development intended to implement those goals and policies. The Shoreline Master Program regulates all development within shoreline jurisdiction. In general, a shoreline substantial development permit is required to be obtained for development within the shoreline area when the total cost of fair market value exceeds $8,504, or any development that materially interferes with the normal public use of the water or shorelines of the state. And that substantial development valuation does get adjusted every 5 years by the state. So that is current 2023 valuation. The SMP, I'm going to throw out SMP a lot, Shoreline Master Program, SMP. Chapter 4 contains goals that form the foundation of the Shoreline Master Program and apply to all areas of Anacortes shoreline jurisdiction, regardless of the designated shoreline environment. The state requires cities to adopt goals or elements to guide and support major shoreline management issues. The policies of the Shoreline Master Program provide broad guidance and direction and are used by the city in applying those regulations. Policies are listed within each individual SMP element, which I've highlighted here. And the SMP applies to every individual, firm, partnership, association, organization. No one is exempt, whether government or private citizen, from the SMP regulations. Chapter 5 of the SMP contains the shoreline environmental designations, which is the shoreline's version of zoning, and the associated policies and regulations for those designations. Management policies are an integral part of the environment designations and are used for determining uses and activities that can be permitted in each environment. Specific development regulations specify how and where permitted development can take place within each shoreline environment. Development regulations in this chapter generally govern height limits and setbacks, where additional policies and development regulations are provided for specific situations, uses, and developments in other chapters. The subject property is located again in the Urban Maritime Shoreline Environment designation. The purpose of the Urban Maritime designation is to preserve a variety of water-dependent, water-oriented, and water-related public, commercial, and industrial uses, such as those associated with the Port of Anacortes. In Table 5.1 of the Shoreline Master Program, we have the shoreline use and modification matrix. Permitted uses and modifications are only allowed in shoreline jurisdiction where the underlying zoning allows for it, and it's subject to the policies and regulations of the SMP. Here I have pulled out the uses that this proposal triggers, and I've highlighted that they are all permitted uses within the Urban Maritime Environment designation. Another picture. Chapter 6 is the Environmental Protection General Regulations. These go into more detail about how there shall be no net loss of environmental functions. In this particular proposal, the area of work is within existing disturbed and improved areas. The area of construction will not exceed those areas as well. So there is no concern or proposal to impact shoreline environment beyond the existing developed area. Chapter 7 of the Shoreline Master Program is the Shoreline Public Access. The shoreline public access is the physical ability of the general public to reach and touch the water's edge, or the ability to have a view of the water and the shoreline from upland locations. There are a variety of types of public accesses. They include docks and piers, boat launches, pathways and trails, promenades, street ends, public areas, beach walks, viewpoints, and others. An important goal of the Shoreline Management Act is to protect and enhance public access to the state's shorelines. This particular chapter of the SMP contains development regulations that address the port's proposal regarding securing the site with a gate and the additional chain link fencing. A few of the most relevant regulations were included in the staff report. So there's a lot more detail in the staff report, and I'm happy to go over any clarification elements, answer any questions. I can pull that up and we can go through that in more detail if you'd like. That kind of gives you the background, the current proposal, and hopefully an understanding of the Shoreline Master Program and responsibilities of the decision makers.
Do we have any questions about the materials presented thus far from commissioners?
Um,
Dr. Martin.
In Chapter 7, the public access, 5.13, it says when on-site public access is not required under something, alternative shoreline access must result in an equal or greater public benefit. I understand that maybe the give and take is the development of the park on N Avenue. In your opinion, is that going to be a greater public access?
Thank you for that question. We did try to address that very regulation in the conditions of approval. So and I can pull up which one, I don't recall exactly, but I think it would be helpful to see it.
Yeah,
together.
I do see that you're requiring an alternative public access improvement plan. Is that something that will come to the Planning Commission?
That would be something that, if the Planning Commission would like to, I suppose you could add that as a condition, but right now it was recommended that it be submitted to the Planning Department for review.
And it needs to be installed within 1 year of the plan approval?
That was our suggested timeline.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I had 2 items I just wanted to clarify. One of the requirements is for the vacation of the street end is that the city receive proper compensation for the acreage or the space that it is giving over to the port. Do you feel confident that that evaluation gave a true and fair exchange for the market value of the property?
So I want to pull up that document. So within this agreement, they mention that very topic, and I believe it had to do with the environmental cleanup and possibly the stormwater improvements that they will be putting in.
Yeah, go back up just a little bit. Yeah. So it says it's
3.9.
Found in part in the release of the cost of liability and the remediation. What are the other parts?
I believe we are dealing with that right now with this permit
Okay.
process.
So I guess I would suggest that,
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Graves.
sorry for interrupting. It looks like City Attorney Darcy Swetnam had something that she wanted to add. Darcy?
Thanks, members of the commission. Yeah, it's a really good question. So this agreement doesn't actually vacate that right-of-way, because you're correct, Mr. Chair, that if there was a vacation, there would have to be compensation paid for that. But the city was really clear when negotiating this agreement that it didn't want to, in fact, vacate that area because of the value of it and potential future use. So this agreement was developed as a use agreement, so that after the 50-year term is up, the city will then regain, unless the agreement's further extended or another, agreement that's similar is negotiated, the city will retain its interest in that right-of-way.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're most welcome.
Quick question. Is it a 30-year or a 50-year agreement?
It's 30 years with 2 10-year extensions written into it as an option.
So my second point had to do with the statement that the fencing was required for security purposes, and I just wanted to clarify, has the port designated that entire area as a MARSEC requirement?
I believe we'll have to wait for the port to answer that.
Okay, I would encourage you to be clarifying that, because it suggests, there's a suggestion of a conflict between the requirement for public access, and it can be, as I read, it can be prevented for security purposes or for safety purposes. And I'm not sure I'm comfortable with the fact that those issues have been addressed completely. All right, I assume we'll have more information at the next meeting. I can open the public hearing to see if there's anybody who has a comment for the work we've done to date. However, there will be more information, and we will continue the hearing into the next meeting so that people will have a chance to respond to the full set of information we have available.
Chairman McKenzie?
Yes.
Did we give before we open the public hearing, did we want to at least give the port the opportunity to speak if they're online?
Do we have a representative of the port online?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any attendees online.
Okay. Thank you. That was a good catch. All right. If there are no more questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
could we ask to have access to that, or to be able to look at least that alternative public access improvement plan when it comes about? Even though I know it's not right now, it's right now going to the planning department, but I think as commissioners representing the public, I think that would be appropriate for us to see.
Thank you. As I recall, there was a concept drawing that showed some intention, and you want to see something a little more definitive?
Yes, I think that the commissioners can request that, and we can fold that into the conditions of approval.
Okay. Well, I think we probably have no further business to attend to. Are there any other questions? With that, we'll call this meeting to a close, with the hearing continued till the next meeting.
And to clarify, that is June 14th. Is that correct? We have that on the record in case anyone wants to join us.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, the next meeting would be June 14th.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.